Spotlight with Shadow, a Canadian dad who's got his finger on the pulse of global entertainment and sports. Each episode features unfiltered conversations with everyday creatives, musicians, wrestlers, filmmakers, and more from every corner of the globe. No fluff, just raw, real stories. This is Spotlight with Shadow, presented by Off the Top Media.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Spotlight with Shadow. My name is Shadow, of course. Tonight, I am joined by one founding member of the Canadian Deathmatch organization, coming soon to realism. How are you doing tonight, Sean?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Hey, I'm excited to talk. This seems like a great journey that you're on, and I'm here for it, and I can't wait to see what happens. But I'm going to skip a lot of these pleasantries. Okay. Why the fuck are we doing this in 2024, man? This is coming back hard, and you guys are the founding pushers of this right now. Why?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, like as a longtime professional wrestling fan, someone who's found the love of deathmatch too, Canada doesn't have a deathmatch scene. You know, the United States has this fucking amazing deathmatch scene. There's multiple deathmatch shows every weekend all over the country. UK has a great scene. Japan has a great scene. Mexico has a great scene. Even Australia has a great scene, and we've got almost nothing. So I was doing some promoting and some booking for some more traditional wrestling. And when it was time to move on to a different project, I kind of said to myself, like, what am I going to do that isn't already being done, especially in Ontario? Like, Ontario wrestling is booming right now. There are so many amazing shows all the time. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, what do I love? What can I put my passion into? And what's going to be different from everything else? And that's deathmatch, man. Deathmatch is completely unique from all that other kind of wrestling. So for me, it makes sense because we need a deathmatch promotion here. That's the only way to help deathmatch grow.
Right. I mean, I have two friends of the shows that you have coming on to do some matches at your shows. That Kyle and Rush Rancid. They're two guys that I know that are coming down to do stuff there, man. That's huge. I mean, I'm big fans of them, and I like what they do. And I can't wait to see what you do. I mean, I've seen some of the talent you're starting to book and stuff like that, and it's looking really good, and I cannot wait. When do you guys start again?
So March 1st at the Germania Hall in Hamilton is going to be our first show. We're starting with the tournament. The tournament, if you know anything about deathmatch history, is an iconic part of the deathmatch tradition, right? Like all the way back to the mid 90s with Cactus Jack and Terry Funk and the IWA King of the Death matches. I like that you mentioned Kyle and Rush because those are two Canadian guys who deserve opportunities, and they need opportunities, right? Kyle has wrestled across the United States. He's done death matches down there, and he's not getting those opportunities here. And for Rush, he's a guy, this will be his first ever death match. So a big part of what we wanted to do was to present opportunity for guys like that. Because right now, if there's a professional wrestler in Ontario, lots of places for you to do your craft. There are not a lot of places for you to practice deathmatch or to grow as a deathmatch wrestler. So for us, we put out a call. We just said, if you want to try deathmatch, like shoot us a message. Like we'll give you a chance. Rush was the first person to message us and be like, you know what? Whatever it is, first deathmatch, I'm down. And I said, okay, if you want the opportunity, we're going to give you that opportunity. And he's a great guy. We're super excited to have him. And we've had some people concerned that like we have an actor coming on. Like he was in Letterkenny, he's been in a bunch of other different projects. He is a trained professional wrestler. He wrestles all the time. Yeah. So it's not like a David Arquette situation. Like if you know David Arquette, he did a match with Nick Gage a couple years back. Clearly,
the greatest WCW champion of all time.
Yeah, didn't know what he was getting into, and it was an awful situation. This is not that. This is nothing like that. Rush is a trained professional wrestler. He knows what he's getting into. He wants to try deathmatch, and I think that's an awesome next step for someone where he is in his career. And for Kyle, he has way more experience in deathmatch. This is what he does. This is an opportunity for him to now apply those skills here at home in Canada, in Ontario. Like he doesn't have to go to the US every time to do deathmatch. Now he can have a home to do that.
Yeah, and he can drive home to his bed at night and not have to stay on the road because it's not that far from where he lives to where this show is. But yeah, if there is people that are concerned with, and I'm not going to step on your toes here, people that are concerned with Rush Rancid coming into promotion, you can check him out. He wrestles for Northland Wrestling up in North Bay. If you don't believe that these guys are telling you the truth, check that out, and you'll see that he's the real deal. He's not just blowing smoke up your ass. But we're not talking about North Bay and Northland. We're talking about Canadian Deathmatch. But I just wanted to tell the people that are watching this that are
absolutely
things that he is. I've seen him wrestle numerous times now. But that being said, tell me a little bit more about your business partners in this venture, because they're not here tonight, unfortunately, which happens. But I'd like to learn a little bit about them.
No, absolutely. It's important for me to talk about how they're contributing to this project as well. So I'm Sean. I'm one of the founders. Two of them is Matty Latour. Matty's kind of our graphics guy. He's helping with some booking. He's helping with sponsorships. All of us kind of do a little bit of everything. But his main focus is graphics, and then he's kind of contributing in other areas as well. And then we've got Dylan Graydon. Dylan is our weapons master. So his job is to cook up some cool shit, bring it to the show, and make this feel uniquely Canadian Deathmatch, right? Like, we don't want this to feel like any other promotion in the country. We want this to be the promotion that is doing death matches better than anyone else in this country right now. And I think with what he's cooking up, with what Matty and I are working on as well, this is going to be completely unique from anything else. So yeah, between the three of us, I mean, they put up with my shit from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. I'm just like constantly like, I wake up and I'm like, okay, what can I work on today? Like, I feel like reinvigorated for life with this project, because I'm just like so excited to bring this unique thing to Canada, but also like lifelong wrestling fan since I was 3 years old. This is my way to give back to the wrestling world in a way. Like, yes, I could have just started another promotion that's like every other one in Ontario, and a lot of them are fantastic, but what is that really doing? This is something unique. Those guys like Kyle, who are great wrestlers who get recognized in the United States, aren't getting enough bookings here. So let's give them a platform to improve and to get better and to, become, instead of Canadian stars or, North American stars, like, maybe guys can go ply their craft in Japan or wherever else they want to do, because, we can help build that.
Right. And I mean, there's a lot of teenagers and young adults and even midlife adults that might be interested in exploring this option, and having it close, they might actually have an opportunity to come train and do it and see, hey, okay, now I can travel and do it. Now I'm a little bit more confident. So it's not even just the fact that you're bringing the scene to Canada. It's you're opening it up a door for a lot of people that might not have the means to get to other places right now to craft their skill.
That's the plan. And we want to find that balance between allowing guys here that want to try deathmatch for the first time. Like, if this is something you want to try and you're a trained wrestler, get in touch with us. We will do everything we can to give you an opportunity. Also a chance for, we mentioned that Kyle, we've got hardcore coming up from Buffalo. We've got a bunch of trained guys coming up who do hardcore matches or death matches all the time. And then we're also bringing in some of the bigger names in deathmatch. So for this show, we've got Otis Kogar coming in. He's one of the biggest names in deathmatch right now in North America. Bringing in those experienced guys, whether it's hardcore or Otis Kogar, that's going to help the young guys, right? So we want them to come in. We want them to show the guys, what a deathmatch should look like. How do we do this properly so that, no one's getting killed? There are techniques to all of this. Whether if you're getting hit in the head with a light tube, like, there are areas of the head you don't want to get hit in, right? Like, there's ways to do all of this, and bringing in those veterans is good for the fans, because Otis Kogar has never wrestled outside the United States before. So this is his international debut, Canadian debut. It's going to be a proper fucking death match. Like, everything you want from a death match, you're going to get in that match and a bunch of the other matches on the show.
So I got to ask, because, I mean, we seen it a couple of years ago and it failed so hard on the AEW scene. Are you going to do the exploding death match as well at some point? Is that a goal?
I mean, if we could find a way to do it not like that, if we could find a venue that would be into it and a way to do it properly, I can't see why not. I don't know if you've watched the recent GCW War Games where we had like the exploding bats and that kind of thing. That might be a good place to start, where you just have like, it's almost like an exploding firecracker, for lack of a better word, on like a bat. You can hit somebody with it and it explodes. It's a cool thing, a nice way to like venture into kind of that realm without going full exploding barbed wire or whatever, FMW
Right.
Onita style stuff right away. Yeah, and I mean, you need to have venues that are on board. We don't want to, especially with like Germania, Hall, and Hamilton. There are like 6 different wrestling promotions that run out of there. We don't want to ruin that for them either.
Right. I could be wrong here. I seen you made a post recently. He is now a switch of venue, right? Because you originally were another venue.
Yes. So originally we were scheduled for March 2nd at the Boys and Girls Club in Hamilton. The more we thought about it, like they weren't super on board with having deathmatch in a Boys and Girls Club. The more we thought about it, that made sense. We talked to Germania Club. They had a date open that weekend and talked to the talent. Everybody could still make it. So yes, we are March 1st, Germania Club in Hamilton. We're starting with the tournament. So it's going to be 4 first round matches. And then instead of a semifinal and a final, we're going to do a 4-way elimination final. So you'll have the winners of your 4 opening round matches will go to a 4-way final. 3 of them need to be pinned. So it's not a 1 fall, it's a 3 fall 4-way final. Each of the opening round matches will have a unique deathmatch style stipulation. So I mean, I don't want to give away too much yet, but we could have one where it's fans bring the weapons, and fans can bring whatever the fuck they want, and they'll hit. You know what I mean? We
Right.
could do like death by 1,000 tacks, and we just have like the mat covered in tack sort of thing, and you've got like baseball bats and shit covered in tack. Glass is going to be part of this too, right? Like I think people expect to be able to see tubes and panes of glass and that kind of thing at a deathmatch show. Maybe not as much of a priority for us as it is for some promotions, but it's something that I think people expect when they go to a deathmatch show. So obviously it's something we want to incorporate as well. So yeah, you're going to get the full, proper deathmatch experience from this show.
So what you're telling me is that when these shows happen, you're not going to have CM Punk backstage dealing with real glass.
We will not by any means have that. Yeah. So we're gonna have a number of people on that do have first aid and that kind of thing because
Right.
this
You'd
shit's
have
dangerous.
to.
Like as much as we want this to be a safe working environment for all of the talent that's part of the show, if you're working with glass and tacks and barbed wire and whatever else, you can only do it so safely. So we're gonna do everything
Right.
we can to protect the talent, but obviously there is a dangerous element to this. And for some fans, like that's what they want to see. They want to see how dangerous can we get. So, yeah, they're definitely going to be part of that.
I mean, when I had an interview with that Kyle, he had told me about a situation where he had swallowed a piece of glass and he couldn't. Well, obviously, he didn't swallow it, but it was in his throat, and he
Yeah,
had to be very careful on how to navigate that because, well, that can't go down, and you got to bring it back
no,
up. So, I can only imagine that the insurance policies you guys have to take out for this is not on your favor, but it's to protect everybody involved. And I mean, these matches, if anybody has watched them, I mean, most of us have, they are pretty dangerous. And again, that is the adrenaline factor to why most of them do it, right?
yeah. I mean, I can't speak for the talent, but I mean, from the interviews I watch and documentary kind of thing, and talking to talent myself, there is an adrenaline rush that comes with this. For a lot of them, like this is where they most feel alive in their life is this opportunity to get out there in a ring, and that little bit of pain that they feel like it's worth it to get that adrenaline rush and get the crowd behind them. It's a different beast, man. Like this shit is it's hard. Like these guys, I don't honestly when I watched like a CZW tournament of death and they're wrestling 3 times in 3 hours and it's 3 brutal death matches, like I don't know how they do it. Like I'm constantly blown away, and I'm someone who, like I said, I've watched wrestling for almost 35 years. This shit is a different level. These people are, they are so dedicated to their craft, and a lot of them have to get up and go to work on Monday or whatever. Like you have to love this to do it. That's why I love independent wrestling so much, is that you have to love it, right? Like you're not in it for the money. You're in it
Right.
because you love it. And for us, like it's the same thing with us. Like obviously a promoter needs to make some money to keep a product going, but we're not expecting to get rich off this. We want to build a scene.
Well, I mean, the old adage is there's no money in indie wrestling, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, realistically, and that's not shitting on anybody. I know promoters, I know wrestlers, and they work hard. And I'm sure, like, I've just met you recently over the last month, and like, I can see the grind that you guys are on, and I'm nothing but the best for you guys coming, and I'm here
Thank you,
for it. And
man.
I'm going to support any way I can. This is why you are here.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people. That's why I push. Like I talk to a lot of independents, and I always like to say support your indies.
Yes.
Like support your indie friends, support your indie promotions. Anybody can get to a WWE, AEW show. Like we understand that, but like those companies don't need our money. These people that are working their ass off that have a 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday, and then showing up to a wrestling ring for a few hours and doing that. That's where it is.
Man, you're so right, because like these guys work their asses off, and then they get in their cars and they drive God knows how far. And that shirt you buy at a show, like that could be the difference between whether or not they can get a meal on the way home. Like these dudes, they love this shit, and they have to love this shit because it's the only way to do it on the indies. And the other thing is, like, you look at WWE right now, if you're a WWE fan, so much of that roster came from the indies. Like if you love Kevin Owens, that guy was Kevin Steen, and that was a guy. I saw him in Ontario many times, all the way back like 2005. Like I've been watching that guy for 20 years. Sami Zayn's the same. Daniel Bryan just retired. John Moxley. Like these are guys that all came up through the indies, making next to nothing. That's where they go. Like this is where guys ply their craft. Now that we don't have a territory era anymore, you know what I mean? Like this is how they do it, right? They have to get out, have to work. Deathmatch doesn't have that mainstream, to get back to deathmatch, but we do have bigger promotions, and we're hoping that guys get there, but also become one of them ourselves.
Right. You
when
want
we
to kind of
talk to
become
these
like
other
a theater
promotions,
system.
yeah,
Ideally.
yeah, and we want to give guys opportunities while still, finding a way to be able to keep going ourselves.
Now, the question I have here, and I understand this is a very personal question because you are starting a business, and typically when people start businesses, you go to a bank. And
Right.
again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. This is just a question.
Go ahead and ask, yeah.
How do you approach a bank situation? Be like, yeah, we're about to start up a promotion that could probably kill you, but hey, we're gonna be good for that loan.
So the nice thing about, I think, because wrestling is so, for lack of a better word, like a carny business, like, so we don't have a bank loan. This is three guys
Right.
who pooling their money and just like, let's put on a show. We think if we watch every dollar that goes in, every dollar that goes out, we can make it work. And so for us, like, we're not approaching a bank. We're not doing that kind of thing. We have our venue, our ring, our talent. Like we're keeping expenditures low, and we have, the fans have been incredible. Like I think there's a hunger here for deathmatch wrestling, especially like good deathmatch wrestling. That's why I bring in like an Otis Cougar. I don't want to give away who his opponent is yet, but I'm telling you, it's one of the best deathmatch wrestlers in Canada right now. That is going to be that very well could steal the show. It could be one of the best deathmatch matches in the country next year. Like it's going to be a great match. So, for us, like it's just the opportunity to be part of something. Like we're just three hardworking guys. A teacher by day. Like every day I go into my classroom and I work with the kids. You know what I mean? And I love that too. But I get the opportunity to do that, and then I can, on my breaks or before work or after work, like I'm working on this. And the other guys work hard too at their day-to-day jobs. And then we're all just like pooling our money and our ideas and figuring out like, how can we contribute to this scene? How can we make a scene here so that those guys we talked about, Rush and, Kyle and that, have somewhere to go? And we've always said, like, since the beginning, like, if in 5-10 years we're not here, but there's a deathmatch scene in Canada, like that's still a win. Like it's bigger than just our company.
If you guys could be the godfathers of Canadian Deathmatch coming and making an impact in Canada, that is probably arguably the biggest thing you could put under your belt.
Yeah, this is like, for like I said, wrestling fan my whole life. Like my parents tell a story about how like 3 years old, they were just flipping the channels, wrestling came on, and they tried to flip from like wrestling to something else, and I just started screaming like a banshee. Um, so and it's never gone off since. Like it's like the love of my life is professional wrestling. So for me, like this is the legacy stuff. You know what I mean? Like being able to do something that can potentially change the sport in this country. That's the goal. So we're aiming high.
Hey, I mean, you got to aim high. I mean, when I started this thing, I was like, hey, I'm gonna see where it goes. Now, my next question for you is: the men you're involved with here, are they lifelong friends, guys you met at a show one day and be like, "Hey, let's start something"?
Somewhere in between. Like, we've been friends for a long time. The three of us were working on another promotion before, more traditional wrestling. That kind of dissipated, and then it was like, we want to try this new thing, which I talked about earlier. But they're definitely guys that I trust with my life. Like, these are guys that, I'm not going to fuck them over. They're not going to fuck me over. We're all in this for the same reasons, for the same goals. Like, we've got a mission statement. You know what I mean? Like, we all know why we're doing this. None of us are trying to get famous or rich or anything like that. We just want to leave a little bit of a mark on Canadian wrestling.
Hey, man, that's kind of why I do this. Like, not the same as Canadian wrestling, but I do this. I'm not here for the fame. I'm not here for money. I'm doing this because I love to have a passion. I like to talk to everybody. I mean, I'm cursed with the gift of gab, right? Like, it is what it is. So that's good. I'm glad that you have some business partners that you can trust. I mean, a lot of people can do that and say that because let's be real, once money starts walking, a lot of bullshit starts talking.
Yeah, I mean, and that's famous in wrestling, right? Like, how many promotions have fallen apart because of money? For us, like, we're keeping that low overhead. Like, we're focusing on the Canadian talent. Like, yeah, we could go out and like pool every dollar we have into bringing in every big deathmatch name but we don't have fans here who would even recognize all of them. So if we can, like, why would we fill cards with all these great deathmatch wrestlers from the United States when we have all these guys here who could be those big names of the future? Like, it just, from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense. So for us, it's let's build a scene here, and then these guys can be our stars.
Right. You want a homegrown talent. Like, you want to
Yeah.
make these guys your guys in a sense, right? You kind of want to do what AEW is doing in the sense, and I'm using that as a reference, but grow your own talent so that, I mean, they're failing at it, but you can grow your own talent and be like, hey, these guys came out of Canadian Deathmatch. Now they're on GCW. Now they're on wherever, somewhere in Japan, like doing these big ass extreme matches that venues will allow. But like, that's huge. I mean, you had said like, oh, we can bring in anybody. Yeah. Biggest name in deathmatch right now, I think, is Cardona, like out and professional scene. Like, but you could bring him in, but like, for what?
We bring him in and it costs us whatever it is, however many thousands of dollars, and then we don't have enough money to run a second show. What have we really accomplished? But if we can have every year, we're going to have a Crazy 8 tournament. We can bring in talent from, as we grow from across Canada, bring in a few international names. Those international names can work with our names in Canada. It makes them bigger stars. It also makes them better performers to get to work with those established deathmatch wrestlers. So for us, it's just about, bringing in talent to feed the guys we have, the education that they need to do this better, right? So, and then at the same time, from a more selfish perspective, like, those guys become our stars. Like you mentioned with AEW, like MJF wasn't a draw, or Hangman Page, or I don't know, Sammy Guevara, whoever you want to talk about. They weren't draws at the beginning, but they used the Jerichos and the Moxleys and the Omegas to make those guys draws. It's a similar idea here, right? Like, we have Rush on this show, and if he goes in against someone who's an experienced deathmatch wrestler, he's a better deathmatch wrestler for that, and therefore can make us more money, can make himself more money, and maybe move on and do bigger things. So, and now he can take those skills, he can go back to Northland Wrestling, or any other promotion he wants to work for. He can share them with someone else. He can be like, hey, I worked with this guy, he told me like this is the best way to do this. That's how great ideas spread, right? And then maybe he can do a death match up there, or Kyle can do the same thing somewhere. Like, if promotions are interested, if fans are interested, like, that's how these skills can spread. It's like, you know what I mean?
I do, and I think it's great of the three of you to take on that. I want to say responsibility, but I'm not sure that's the right word. But I'm going to use it for lack of a better term here. Is you're taking on that responsibility of, okay, we have a big shoe to fill here, and let's make it happen. Not many people would be willing to go into this business knowingly and accept the fact that, I mean, let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. A lot can go wrong really quick.
Well, especially in deathmatch wrestling, right? Like,
Right.
you watch The Dark Side of the Ring with Nick Gage, like one light tube can change a guy's life or career.
Right.
It is dangerous, but these guys are trained. They know what they're doing. 99.9% of the time, they get up, they do it again the next weekend. So I mean, they know what they're doing. They're good at what they do, and they're just going to get better by having these opportunities.
Now, the three of you doing this, how do your partners feel about you doing this? Are they all in?
Doing, yeah, they're all in. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the driving force. Like I'm like, the face of it. I'm doing interviews like this sort of thing, but they're working just as hard as I am. Um, yeah, I mean, they're on board. They love deathmatch wrestling as well. They are excited to be part of this project that honestly it's growing so much faster than I think we even thought that it could. Like started the Instagram page and we're like, let's put on a tournament next year. That was so when we started it, like, let's do a single tournament. Like, we'll give guys a chance. Maybe we'll try on a yearly tournament. And then, like, more fans kept reaching out and more talent kept reaching out, being like, hey, how can I be part of this? How can I, like, we have fans messaging us being like, yo, I've got 40 light tubes at my parents' house. Can I come bring them to you? Or, like, we got these doors just hanging around. Like, can you use them? Like, or can I
Yeah.
come help set up the ring? And it's just like, this is awesome. It's such a DIY scene. And like wrestling's always kind of like that, but I'm finding so much like there's so many people. It's kind of like early like punk movement. Like when you find that person that loves the same thing that you love, you're just like you're so all in. You want to be part of it. We have so many people who have reached out just being like, how can I be part of this? How can I help? Like people are buying shirts. People are, like, how can I come? Can I come set up the ring? Can I come set up tables and chairs? Can I, can I be ring crew? Like people want to be part of this, and that's really rewarding as well, right? Because it shows me like there's a hunt for this and there's a need for this, and it makes me feel like maybe we're going the right direction.
I mean, respect to the traditional wrestling scene around Ontario, because we're just strictly talking Ontario right now. I mean, 2 hours down the road, you have Greektown. You have a few hours up the road, you have Northland. Down in Kitchener, you have Off the Top Studio, I think it's called. Like, there's so many promotions happening at the traditional set. So it's nice to have an alternative that's coming to Ontario. Even if you didn't do the deathmatch scene, you're offering something different for people that's not the traditional sense.
Yeah, there's so much wrestling right now. Like you've mentioned, like I said, like Germania has like 6 wrestling promotions, I think 5 or 6 that run there regularly. Like Hamilton wrestling is on fire, but Ontario wrestling is also on fire. Like you look across the province, there are promotions everywhere. There are 6 to 10 shows every weekend in this province right now. It's absolutely insane. There's so much good wrestling coming out. I think in the next 10 years, all of those talents you see now on your Destinies and your C4 Demand Luchas, they're going to be on TV. They're going to be everywhere, right? Whether it's your Gabriel Fuerza or Von Vertigo, whoever else it is. For us, we want to do something different. It's not about mainstream. It's about, we want to be somewhere for the other people to go. You're the punk kid or you're like the goth kid or, you love horror movies. Whatever, like, alternative thing you're into, deathmatch encompasses a lot of that, right? Like they're like the outcasts. This is for who feel like they don't fit in with the wrestling scene. Come here and have a home. Like watch this sick product. Watch these guys bleed all over the place. And this is like their art form. This is what they love to do. Like we're not going to make anyone do anything they don't want to do. Like the talent is coming to us saying we want to come work for you.
Right. And the way you were explaining that, and it just immediately came to my head, Nirvana and just the grunge scene in general. This is what you're doing in Canada. You're introducing grunge, in a sense, to wrestling.
Yeah, it's like it is like a grungy kind of wrestling sort of thing. I mean, we are hoping to expand throughout Canada as we go. That's a long-term project, of course, because we would have to talk to venues all over the place. When you're doing deathmatch, I mean, you need to run so much by the venues. Like it's a whole different beast than professional wrestling, normal, pure professional wrestling.
So also I have to ask, are there permits that you have to get as well?
No, which
The
is
fact of the nature of the beast this is.
no. So we have insurance through the venue for anyone who attends, and then we will have talent sign something basically saying that we're not liable. We're very lucky in Ontario to not have more of a structured permit system for professional wrestling. Um, Different venues, you need to get different things, whether it's some venues you need to get your own insurance, or if you're going to serve alcohol, you need an alcohol permit, all that kind of shit. In the US, it's different as well. Like Ohio is a no blood state, so it's very difficult to do deathmatch wrestling in Ohio right now. New York didn't have light tubes for the longest time, so you really needed to like look around for what it is that you liked. Ontario, as far as I know, all bets are off right now. I mean, maybe we'll get into this and something will pass, but at this point, like all bets are off. I think we can do whatever the fuck we want as long as we're not going to kill anyone, right?
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely
Yeah,
love that. And I explained to you while we talked over the last couple of weeks and stuff, and just before we went live. My partner's huge into that kind of thing. She's not big of a wrestling fan, but like she's all for bloody guts kind of thing, and this is just right up her alley. So I'm definitely going to be trying to come there for March. So much happening. I mean, I got to be there. That's just something I got to do.
yeah, we
I,
want you
I
here,
want to
man. Like,
experience history. Like,
yeah, it's going to be historic, right? Because we're not only doing the Crazy Eight Invitational, which is the tournament. The winner of the tournament is becoming the first ever Canadian Deathmatch champion. I can tell you, I can't show you yet, but we got the belt in the mail today. It is
ooh.
fucking stunning. I cannot wait to show everyone. It is gorgeous. I can't even express how excited we are to show everyone. And like it's going to feel prestigious. Like I think it's going to feel like a historic moment. And like I said, like no one else is doing what we're going to be doing in the whole country. I don't think there's a promotion quite like this.
Hey, you guys are so patriotic that you leave the red and the white on the mat, right?
Yeah, lots of red. More red than white, hopefully.
Well, yeah, right. Um, I realized as you answered, I kind of maybe misspoke on how I asked, but like your life partners, if you will, how do they feel about this?
Hmm. Oh, I see. I see. My life partner is not a wrestling fan, I would say, but not the kind of person who's going to stop me from pursuing it either, which is which is good for me. Like, um, she's interested in what I'm doing, which is great. She like likes to keep up with it, but she's like she does her own thing, and I kind of do my own thing in terms of wrestling. Um, I can't speak for Maddie or Dylan's life partners, but just for me, she is supportive, absolutely. So I'm very lucky to have her. I love her very much. But she's not a wrestling fan. In terms of deathmatch, I don't
I
know
think I
what
might
she
try
thinks.
that one.
Honestly, yeah, that might be a step too far. I can remember having a partner before, like in my early 20s, and wrestling was on the TV, and it was Kane and Daniel Bryan, and Kane tombstones Daniel Bryan on the stairs, and she turns to me and she's like, "What in the fuck are you watching?" And like that's like, I mean, obviously that's like a crazy thing for WWE, I guess. Not even really, but like, imagine someone did that into a net of barbed wire or light tubes. Like,
Right?
it's hard to explain what it is about this that is so captivating to people who don't get it or don't want to get it. You know what I mean? Like, if I just show someone a clip of someone cutting someone else with a light tube, they're like, "What in the fuck are you doing?" Like, if like I always think about like as a teacher, like what if they saw that I'm out here promoting this? Would they be like, "What is this guy doing?" Like, this is the guy who's teaching my kid math every day. But like, I think there is artistic merit to it, the same way that there is in horror movies or anything else. I
That
think
that
there
just
is an art to it. Like, sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead. I apologize.
just like I do think there is so much beautiful deathmatch wrestling happening, especially right now. Like, deathmatch wrestling at its best should take the wrestling skill that you already have and enhance it even more. It shouldn't be an excuse to not be a good wrestler. It should make things matter more.
Just because it's deathmatch wrestling doesn't mean you become a lazy wrestler.
I mean, that's how I feel, and that's the
Right.
deathmatch wrestlers that I love. Those are the ones who can actually still put together a good match.
I mean, realistically, you had mentioned you're a big ECW guy, and this is a lot of ECW influenced. You look at guys like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. They could do this, but they could also
Yeah.
still technical wrestle.
You look at like an RVD,
Yeah.
he could exchange on the mat. I mean, Sabu could wrestle,
Yeah.
absolutely. They still. I mean, Jerry Lynn was a great wrestler. And Steve Corino is one of my guys. I fucking love Steve Corino. These guys who can do hardcore, but they understand what goes into a good match still, that they're still telling a story. There needs to be wrestling holds, build to the spots with the weapons. You know what I mean? Like that's what good death match for me is. And I look at someone like a Jun Kasai, like one of my deathmatch favorites. Like every good Jun Kasai deathmatch starts with some technical wrestling and it builds to those bigger deathmatch spots, whether it's tubes along the ropes, like they tease that a few times first. You know what I mean? Like it's not, for the most part, it doesn't start that way. Some obviously do, and those matches can still be great. Um, Good deathmatch wrestling starts with good wrestling.
Fair. You had said, oh, I'm out here promoting deathmatch wrestling, and the parents might think, oh, this guy's teaching my kids. If you remember, you're about my age as well. You remember back in the day an Adam Sandler movie called Billy Madison,
Oh
and
yeah,
the principal was found out to be a wrestler.
I do. The
That's
mask
kind of where
wrestler, at least.
that's where it took me. I was like, oh man.
Man, I'm not the Bob or whatever his name was, thankfully, but
Well, that is my
um,
next question. Are the three of you getting involved in any of this at all, or is this strictly promotional material for you guys?
I mean, none of us are going to be wrestling or anything like that. I mean, none of us are. Dylan might have some training sort of thing, but I'm not a trained wrestler. I don't pretend to know how to do that at any kind of level. For me, I love putting a show together, building a promotion from the ground up. I love booking. And there's a bunch of other necessary evils that come along with all of that, whether it's talking with venues constantly. Like I send so many emails to venues just being like, okay. And they'll be like, yeah, we would love to have wrestling. And I'll be like, okay, but how do you feel about glass? How do you feel about barbed wire? And then they kind of walk it back, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So there's so much of that kind of stuff going on. That's not my favorite part of this whole thing, but I love like having a vision and bringing it to reality. Like in June, this was not a thing, and now we're in October. This whole thing has built since then, and there's so much momentum, and it's nice to be part of that. To feel like this show's going to happen, and it's going to, if all goes well, it could change the face of Canadian wrestling, and I'm like a little bit of that. That feels really good.
Hell yeah. Now, I'm going to stop with some questions now because I want to touch base. We're in October right now. The interview will drop in the next few weeks here. So we'll say November, December, January, February. The show's in March 1st.
Yep. March 1st.
I want to touch back middle of February, and I want the three of you, or at least you, and I want to see where we sit if you'll come back and be a guest
Absolutely.
again. I would love to sit down just a couple weeks ahead of this event and see where this is all going.
I think that's a great idea because it'll see how this project has evolved. We'll see if I still have any hair left on my head. Like, who knows by that point? I'm
You might
kidding,
be
but
missing an eye or something. Who knows?
yeah, who knows? My hands will
But
be like missing a finger from because I tried to use the barbed wire without gloves on or something. Yeah, but yeah, that's a great idea. I think because it'll show you, or show your fans, the people who are watching, like how this project has evolved. Like I said, like in June, this was like the shell idea. Like, hey, maybe someday we could do a deathmatch tournament. Yeah, that's fun. And it was like, I don't know if you can hear the sirens, but there's super loud sirens right now.
it's
Hamilton,
typical
baby.
where you are.
Yeah. And then I've worked so hard on this. We've all worked so hard on this that now we have something where like some of the best deathmatch talent in the world is reaching out to us like, hey, I've noticed what you're doing. I think you guys are doing a great job. How can I be part of this next year? Or like pretty big names being like, hey, I'd love to be part of this next year. I'll fly myself in. And it's just, whoa. Like that's just like mind blowing that we've put something together that talent you'd heard of that you're aware of would want to do that for. Like that feels cool.
I lied. I'm going to ask one more question.
Go for
Given
it.
the fact that you just said this, are you considering turning it into a whole weekend event?
So not at this point. For us, we have this first show in March. I'm working super hard to land another show in June, and
Okay.
then probably September, October, and maybe a December. So
So kind of
best
like a
case
3 month
scenario,
interval thing.
yeah. For now, um, the venue we're working with for the second show is incredible. Like if it comes to fruition, it's going to be great. I'll have more information, I'm sure, when we talk in February.
Right.
But yeah, we are working hard behind the scenes to make it. We want this to be a regular thing. We talked originally. The idea is let's do a backyard show somewhere, like an outdoor, like CZW Tournament of Death thing, where like people can come and they camp and that kind of thing, and we could do like a weekend of it, sort of thing. And then it was like, well, let's do this somewhere slightly more traditional for now, and maybe it'll grow into that. You know what I mean? Like if we find that there's a taste for that extreme kind of ultra violence that we can't do in a building, or it's so big that some of the venues that we're looking at can't hold it, like, yeah, we can look at that option more realistically.
Hey, I mean, I want to see the boots and hearts of Canadian Deathmatch Wrestling. Let's see it happen.
Yeah, man, I would love that too.
That'd be huge. With that being said, I'm going to stop the questions here. We're going to talk more, I'm sure, very soon.
Absolutely.
But, sir, by all means, please plug every bit of everything you need to plug away now.
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to say is thank you guys for having us on, for having me on. This kind of opportunity really opens up what we do to a new audience, and a big part of what we want to do is educate both traditional wrestling fans and people who aren't wrestling fans to know that, hey, this isn't just people hitting themselves with shit. Like there's actually storytelling going on, even for traditional wrestling fans. Like there's so much of a stigma around deathmatch wrestling that we want to help eliminate. Let people know like there's really good deathmatch wrestling happening. You can be a part of that. So thank you for the opportunity. First off, the other things I want to say is please follow us on our social medias. Canadian Deathmatch on Instagram. That's our main source. We also have a Facebook. We have a Twitter. Please visit Eventbrite if you're interested in tickets. We have a couple first row tickets still available. About half of our second row tickets still available, and then some general admission as well. If you would like to support us, you can also buy a shirt or a hat on canadiandeathmatch.bigcartel.com. We also have shirts on there for Rush Rancid, who we talked about extensively. We've got a Rush Rancid exclusive shirt on there. We've got a shirt for Hardcore. One of our deathmatch veterans is coming up from Buffalo. He just broke his arm and his wrist in a no rope barbed wire match. It was brutal to watch. He got pushed into the barbed wire, and the barbed wire just gave way, fell right onto the concrete, broke his wrist, broke his arm. He's going to be out for a few weeks. If you buy a shirt, the money goes to him. So we wanna help these guys out too. Right? So as much as we're doing what we're doing, we want to help them too. So if you'd like to buy a shirt, CanadianDeathmatch.bigcartel.com. If you're in the Hamilton area or anywhere in Ontario or even upstate New York or Michigan, you want to see something different, please buy a ticket and follow us on socials. Let us know who you want to see. That's a big thing as well. Like if there's a name that you want to see up here, let us know. Like we've had people calling for Schlack, people who want to see Judge Joe Dredd, like all these people. Like if we know you want to see them, we'll put that extra step in to try and get them. No promises, but we're going to do our best.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the man. Make sure you head to all their socials. Make sure you're following, liking, just checking out the content, making sure you're supporting them. Make sure you head to their website. Whether or not you buy a merch for yourself, I don't know, buy it for your grandma, buy it for your aunt, buy it for your uncle, buy it for your kids. Just make sure you're supporting them and their journey and being a part of this historic event happening in Canada. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Shadow. This has been Sean. Make sure to support your indie friends and promotions. Good night.